Malika, you are now host. Prabhu.
Okay, I'll play music now.
Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Krishna Krishna Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna
Hare Krishna.
Here I am. Hare Krishna. Jai
This
Prabhu.
is a respectful obeisance of Krishna Prabhupada, Krishna Gurudev. Yes, you're welcome to the platform. We have few people on the platform for now, so if you don't mind, we'll play the music for about another 5 minutes and allow
Yeah.
more people to come in.
Okay. No
Thank
problem.
you. Thank
What
you.
time is it where you are?
I'm in Nigeria, West Africa, Nigeria.
So what time? What time is it?
It's 11 o'clock here now.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. What's
Yeah.
going on there in Africa?
Yes. Yeah. We've not gotten devotees come on, but I'm sure they will all join in the course of the class.
Half of the audience right now is from Vrindavan. Me and Girit Hari, we're half your audience.
Oh, wow. So
I have a bigger audience in Vrindavan than I do in Africa right now.
Oh, very wonderful. So I think we can start off the class now. I'll play Srila Prabhupada's Jai Radha Madhav, and then after that you can start the lecture.
Okay, we'll talk. Okay, you do that. Put on Prabhupada Kirtan.
Okay, then.
Okay, very good.
John. John. John.
Right.
Yeah. John. John. DJ. Hare.
Right at my foot. There's another one right here, right there.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So I'm putting the verse for the today on the screen, and you can start.
Aha. Okay, Namaon Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pajani Nirvisesa Sanyavari Pastajade Satani Panchakopa Tirubhastraki Pasandubhi Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasri Gaur Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare. So since we're doing Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll start Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya.
Okay, and I was just thinking of a few things, of course. I mean, you have me here because of my time with Srila Prabhupada. Of course, one of the things was very evident with Srila Prabhupada was responsibility. And part of that responsibility was we always had to be on time. So when you arrange these, and of course, I can't say too much today because I didn't even make the last class that was scheduled because it got lost in my telephone. It was about a month or so ago. I was supposed to give a class and I completely missed the class. So I can't chastise any of you very much, but at the same time, our business here, when we say we're going to do something at a certain time, that's what we do. This shows reciprocation and respect with one another. So with that said, we can begin Srimad Bhagavatam. We're on the first canto here, chapter 10, verse 18. Udhava satyakishchaiva vyajane param madbhute vikiryamana kusumai reje madhupati pati. Pati. The synonyms are Udhava, cousin brother of Krishna, Satyaki, his driver, Cha, and Ava, certainly. Vyajane, engaged in fanning. Parama adbute, decorative. Vikirya manaha, seated on scattered. Kusumai, flowers all around. Raje, commanded. Madhupati, the master of Madhu, Krishna. Pati, on the road. Translation: Uddhava and Satyaki began to fan the Lord with decorated fans. And the Lord, as the master of Madhu, seated on scattered flowers, commanded them along the road. And then we go to the next verse, first canto, chapter 10, text 19. Asruyantas sisha satyas tatra dvijarita nanurupa nurupascha nirgunasya gunatmanaha. Does anyone want to chant, or should we just read translation and purport? So we'll read the synonyms.
Okay,
Asruyant.
okay, got it.
Asruyanta, being heard. Ashishaha, benediction. Satyaha, all truth. Tatra, here. Tatra, there. Dvija iritaha, sounded by learned brahmanas. Na, not. Anurupa, befitting. Anurupaha, fitting. Cha, also. Nirgunasya, of the absolute. Guna atmanaha, playing the role of a human being. Translation: it was being heard here and there that the benedictions being paid to Krishna were neither befitting nor unbefitting, because they were all for the absolute, who was now playing the part of a human being. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. At places, there were sounds of Vedic benediction aiming at the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. The benedictions were fitting in the sense that the Lord was playing the part of a human being, as if a cousin of Maharaj Yudhisthira. But also they were unfitting, because the Lord is absolute and has nothing to do with any kind of material relativities. He is nirguna, or there are no material qualities in him, but he is full of transcendental qualities. In the transcendental world, there is nothing contradictory. Whereas in the relative world, everything has its opposite. In the relative world, white is the opposite conception of black. But in the transcendental world, there is no distinction between white and black. Therefore, the sounds of benedictions uttered by the learned brahmanas here and there appear to be contradictory in relationship with the absolute person. But when they are applied to the absolute person, they lose all contradiction and become transcendental. One example may clear this idea. Lord Sri Krishna is sometimes described as a thief. He is very famous amongst his pure devotees as Makanchura. He used to steal butter from the houses of neighbors at Vrindavan in his early age. Since then, he is famous as a thief. But in spite of his being famous as a thief, he is worshipped as a thief. Whereas in the mundane world, a thief is punished and is never praised. Since he is the absolute personality of Godhead, everything is applicable to him. And still, in spite of all contradictions, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation, it was being heard here and there that the benedictions being paid to Krishna were neither befitting nor unbefitting, because they were all for the Absolute, who is now playing the part of a human being. Hare Krishna. So we can start. It's very nice to be here. I have to thank Giridhari Puja for arranging this class as well as the last one. Of course, as you know, we're here in Vrindavan, and everything we do here is about Krishna, Krishna and Balaram. In this Srimad Bhagavatam, of course, here you're on the first canto. We're currently doing 10th canto, and we've been going through many of the demons that Krishna and Balaram are killing. Today the verse was on Aghasura. So from the very beginning, you all know, I met most of you. You all know it was 50 years ago when I joined, when I first moved into a temple. And that was a very fortunate time for me, for all of us, because George Harrison had just months before, he put up some $19,000 so that Prabhupada could print Krishna book. You're all familiar with that incident, how Krishna book was printed? Shama Sundar, when I became Prabhupada's servant, Shama Sundar, he was the secretary. Of course, he had known George Harrison since 1967, when they were in San Francisco, Haight-Ashbury time. And this is when Shama Sundar and his wife at the time, Malati, they joined. So it was shortly after that George Harrison, he saw the devotees in the street in San Francisco. And he had always been interested in Eastern philosophy and spiritual life. Anyway, of course, Shama Sundar and him and Mukunda Maharaj, now they became very, very good friends. In fact, George Harrison, he said that he had two soulmates. One was Ravi Shankar, and the other one was Shama Sundar. So for him, Shama Sundar, they were very, very close. Then, of course, when they went to England, George Harrison, of course, helped with the Radha Krishna Temple album, Hare Krishna Mantra, which became a #1 hit in the UK, and the devotees were on the television chanting Hare Krishna. It was being played on the radio stations. So George Harrison was a big factor in these things. But then when Prabhupada was there, this was 1970, I believe, and Prabhupada had never asked George to do anything, never asked him for money. This was something was very unique with Srila Prabhupada, is he was literally giving Krishna to everyone. And as he would say so often, Krishna, he said, is not a poor man. This morning we just read, we have our little after Mangalarti, we announced the book distribution that are sold, all the books that are sold in over a half a dozen temple stores. And after that, we read the Prabhupada quote for today. And I think it was today, it was said, Prabhupada said, Krishna doesn't need your rasgulla and puri. He said, he's not hungry. He said, he has everything. He said, but he gives us the opportunity to do some service. So anyway, at the time, Shama Sundar, Srila Prabhupada, they were staying in big palatial building of George's in England. And Prabhupada called Shyamasundar into the room, and he told Shyamasundar that he wanted to print the Krishna book. So after leaving India in 1965, we know Prabhupada had 3 cases, 3 trunks full of books. Those books were the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that Prabhupada had printed in India. And he literally was coming to the US and he was going to distribute his books. From the very beginning, Prabhupada, he was the very first book distributor in our society. And this is how he made his way when he came to America, was selling books, distributing books. And Prabhupada told me in Vrindavan, when he was translating the first canto, remember, this was in the 1960s, early 1960s, while he's staying at Radha Damodar Temple. And Prabhupada said that he put everything required for one to become Krishna conscious in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. He said, everything you need to understand spiritual life, everything you need to make advancement, everything is in the first canto. And he said that he did that because he didn't know if he was going to be able to do any more translating in the future. So this first canto that you're now in the midst of, very important. It's very important. It's not like it's just the beginning. We know, of course, it's the lotus feet. We begin at the lotus feet of the Lord. So that's the first canto. But Prabhupada specified that everything you'll find there in his purports in the first canto. So now a few years have gone by and Prabhupada's in England. Shyamasundar, Guru Das are there, Mukunda. They were all friends to George Harrison. So Prabhupada called Shyamasundar into the room and he told Shyamasundar, he said, I want you to ask George to put up the money to print the Krishna book, volume 1. So when Shyamasundar heard this from Prabhupada, he got in very much anxiety, so much anxiety, because this is how their closeness, they had become so close, because Shyamasundar never asked George for anything. Everyone was asking George. This is when you have money, people ask you for money. They always have a cause they want to do, open up this, do this, have a prasadam cart, whatever it might be. If you have money, people are going to ask you for it. I remember some years ago, my devotee friend, good friend, Ambarish Prabhu, Alfred Ford. This was back 10, 20 years ago. He had a fax machine. Back in those days, fax machines were very popular. He said every day he would get faxes from devotees telling him the projects that they wanted to do. And they just needed this, and they needed this, and so many thousands of dollars for this, and so many, just because he had money. So it's a very difficult position to be in. So Shyamasundar was feeling this lot of anxiety. And he said, Prabhupada, he said, I've never asked George for anything. He said, that's part of our friendship. So what a good friend, you don't ask them. Huh? And Prabhupada said, you just do it. Told him he had to do it. I was going to read something else if I get to it after this. So Shyamasundar understood he didn't have a choice. It was an order from his spiritual master. We can't follow the orders of the spiritual master. Disciple has no value. So anyway, he met George. They were in the kitchen. This is a big kitchen in a mansion home in England. So they're in the kitchen, and finally Shyamasundar got up the courage and he said, Prabhupada, he said, he wants you to donate for printing Krishna book. It was $19,000. This was 1969, 1970. So it was a lot of money. $20,000, you could say now $100,000. So he finally got out and he said it to George, and George just looked at him. Shamasundar said his face just dropped. It was just the last thing you wanted to hear, Prabhupada asking for money. And then right after that happened, there was a storm that was brewing. And there was big clap of thunder and a lightning bolt. And it knocked all the electricity out in the house. Everything went out. And it was pitch black. And it was like that for a couple minutes. And there two of them are standing in the kitchen. They can't even see one another. And then finally the lights went back on. And George Harrison had a big smile on his face. He said, I guess I'm supposed to give the money. So that was that. And that was Prabhupada. Prabhupada wanted something done. Krishna always made all arrangements. So that was like 1970, they printed Krishna book. And it was a year later that I met the devotees. And when I met the devotees, I was looking for God. I literally wanted to find out all about God. So in the very first meeting, my friend and I went and saw the devotees. They were in a park chanting at a little local concert, different rock bands. And the devotees were there chanting mridanga, cartels. So we went down. We were both searching. We went down and started talking to the devotees. So of course I had my questions, meaning of life, why am I here? Is there God? These were literally my questions that I was trying to find answers to. So the devotees, as we know, Hare Krishna, they have all the answers. And in particular, Krishna book had just come out. So everybody's reading Krishna book, all these Westerners who didn't know anything about God, didn't know God had a name. They told us everything, God's name, his address, we say phone number, his mother's name, father's name, friends' names, girlfriend's name, all about Krishna. And both of us, we were immediately content, satisfied, and convinced. And we moved into the temple. So that was May of 1971. So amongst doing my different services, one of my first services was reading Krishna book when the devotees had lunch. We're talking about in these verses, prayers to the Supreme, to Krishna. Even he's here in this world acting like an ordinary human being. And when you get ahead a little bit, you'll see it's the ladies on the roof of the palaces. They start offering prayers. And these prayers are said were very nice, transcendental. So my service every day for lunch for an hour while devotees ate lunch was to read them Krishna book. So this was my very beginning days in Krishna consciousness. And then I had another service at nighttime. All the brahmacharis, of course, it was the Bahulaban farm in New Vrindavan. There were about 6 or 8 men, and they were in big room, brahmachari ashram. So then the evening time, my service was to tell them the story that I read during lunchtime. Not read it to them again, but whatever I could remember, my service was to tell them the story. So it was in this way, by Prabhupada's mercy, that I began to hear about Krishna. So that was May 1971. So it was almost exactly 1 year later that we went from New Vrindavan in West Virginia. We drove across country, across the whole United States to Los Angeles, where Prabhupada was staying. And we went there, my friend and I, we were getting Brahmin initiation because we had been now living in the temple for a year. You receive first initiation, 3 months you can get initiated, Prabhupada, Harinam initiation. And then after another 9 months, you would be eligible to receive second Brahmin initiation. So we went to Los Angeles. Now I'm just a young boy. I'm 21 years old. I'm a devotee in New Vrindavan. So all I'm doing is milking cows and fixing fences and picking up hay before the winter came, doing farm work. Also did some service in the kitchen. So when we get to Los Angeles, even though I'm just a guest, a visitor, I'm with Kirtanananda. Kirtanananda, we know, was one of the very first devotees. I initiated 1966, very first sannyasi in the society. So because I was with him, I got to associate with Prabhupada. But my association with Prabhupada also started with Krishna book. Because every afternoon, Prabhupada would go into the garden and he would talk. Sometimes he would just sit there and chant on his beads. We would watch him chant. He would pull down his counter beads. We saw him using his counter beads, be chanting japa. And then sometimes he would just talk. There's just 4 or 5 of us in the garden. And the first day we went in, the devotee handed me Krishna book, that very same Krishna book, first volume of Krishna book. And he says, when Prabhupada wants, you read Krishna book to him. So now a year has gone by, and now I'm seeing, I'm reading Krishna book every day in New Vrindavan. And here's Prabhupada. He's listening to Krishna book every day. This Krishna book that just a few years before, he had spoken into the microphone. There's actually many, many audios of Prabhupada reciting Krishna book stories. If you get an opportunity, you can hear Prabhupada himself describing Krishna in Krishna book. So I became the designated Krishna book reader again. And the first day we go into Prabhupada's garden, and it was just a small garden. It had a 2-meter high wall around, cinder block wall, and it was filled with roses and gardenias. Even had some banana trees. It didn't give bananas because it's too cold in Los Angeles, but it had tulsi plants, many tulsi plants. And Prabhupada said it was his favorite place in the whole world because Tulsi Devi was there. So it again was Vrindavan. Prabhupada, everywhere he went, Prabhupada was in Vrindavan. So he was surrounded by Tulsi. He said, this is Vrindavan. He said it was his favorite place in the whole world. And we were just all new. People were coming and going, so there would be different people in the garden. So now this is just us few devotees, and we're just sitting there. And I'm holding the Krishna book. Krishna book was big. That was, we call that, we have big books, and then you have what, the extra big books, ultra big books. That was Krishna book, very big, thick, volume 1. And I'm just holding it because I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. And Prabhupada looked at me. He said, I like the cowherd boys very much. And he smiled. Then he said, read. So this was the first time. Now I'm reading Krishna book. My very first service was reading Krishna book to my godbrothers, my godsisters in New Vrindavan. And now a year has gone by, and I'm reading Krishna book to Prabhupada. And I'm amazed that he's sitting here listening to Krishna book. We're trying to develop Krishna consciousness but we got to see pure devotee of Krishna, completely absorbed as I'm reading this story. Me, I'm just, that first day, I just start reading this story, and other devotees, we're listening to a story. But Prabhupada was, his listening and our listening was much different levels. Just like we know, Prabhupada, he would see things on my godbrother Prithu, he calls different dimensions that are there. We know even here, like we see with the universe, there's planets, there's shadow planets, we have Rahu and Ketu, and so there are things there. And the moon is a heavenly planet, although we don't see it that way because it's on a different level, a subtler level. So Prabhupada, he saw things that we didn't see. The famous story of Jamuna, when she talks about in London, and they were having a kirtan, and she was leading the kirtan. Very often we hear Jamuna every day when they greet the deities, chanting Govindam prayers. So she tells the story, she was leading kirtan. And microphone, everything there. And Prabhupada, he's sitting on the Vyasasana and he's responding like the other devotees. But then all of a sudden, in the middle of her chanting, Prabhupada starts chanting loudly into the microphone. Narada Muni Bhajaya Vina Radhika Ramana Ramane. And he just keeps chanting, and he's motioning to her to keep chanting. And then finally, Prabhupada stopped chanting and Jamuna continued to chant Hare Krishna. So then it wasn't until the next morning, Prabhupada said to her, "Did you see?" And she said, "See what, Prabhupada?" She said, "Narada Muni, he came to the kirtan." And she said, "No, I didn't see." He said, "Narada Muni was there." So I was also there at one or two events where Prabhupada would say Narada Muni had come in Vrindavan when he did the initiation ceremony during Kartik. He said Rupa Goswami came, attended the initiation ceremony. So these events that Prabhupada has done, of course, we know they're not ordinary. They're not even extraordinary. They're completely out of this world. As it said, just like Krishna appears here. Prabhupada appeared here with a mission by Lord Chaitanya, and he distributed Hare Krishna mantra all over the world. Here in Vrindavan now, we're about 3 weeks away, 2.5 weeks away from Kartik. We're not so busy. Yesterday in the temple room, Guru Puja, Mangalartik, over 1,000 people in the temple. Just the devotee community alone is several hundred. But then every day, hundreds of people are coming just to see Krishna Balaram, Radha Shama Sundar, Prabhupada's Samadhi. The first kirtan they have here in the morning, 4 o'clock, 4:15, 4:10 is Mangalartik and Prabhupada's Samadhi. And there they chant prayers to the spiritual master. And it's attended every day. You cannot even fit everyone in there. Everyone's attending Prabhupada's Mangalartik Kirtan. And then after Mangalartik, they have chanting japa in the Samadhi, Prabhupada's Samadhi. Currently, every day there's around 1,000 people that chant one round of japa on beads. This is what Prabhupada has done. So this Prabhupada sitting in the garden, listening to Krishna book. This is why Prabhupada, he was so eager to give Krishna to everyone, because he has Krishna. He knows the joy, the happiness, the transcendental bliss of being with Krishna. So I'm reading Krishna book that day. And it was a story about Krishna killing a demon. And just like I would read in New Vrindavan, I'm in the garden there, and I'm reading, and devotees are listening, and Prabhupada, he's listening. But then I came to the point where Krishna killed the demon. And Prabhupada starts laughing and laughing and laughing, and his whole body's shaking. I never saw anyone laugh like this before. I heard him, his whole body was shaking, and tears are coming down his eyes, and he's slapping his knee, and he's laughing out loud. So everyone is laughing. Everyone starts laughing. Not because of the story. Prabhupada was laughing because he's seeing this happening. But we're laughing because we see Prabhupada laughing. And it was during that story that I understood that I was in the right place. That what Prabhupada was giving us was the absolute truth. And it was the answer to all my problems. Well, everybody's problems is Krishna consciousness. Seeing Prabhupada laughing and smiling and enjoying, then I understood that's what Krishna consciousness is about. I know even here in Vrindavan, we have a temple here. As I said, there's over 600 devotees engaged in services in this temple, Krishna Balaram Mandir. And when you have so many devotees together and you have so many buildings and so much management, managers, there's issues. But all these things are our service. But what I saw with Prabhupada was this is what Krishna consciousness is. This is our business, to become attached to Krishna. And I saw Prabhupada, he was 100%. He was completely attached to everything Krishna did. And just hearing this story, Prabhupada was in complete ecstasy. So this was my, again, experiencing just by reading Krishna book. So I decided the next day, I'm going to pick a story that I thought was so funny. And I convinced myself that when I read this story, when I say this one line, Prabhupada's going to, just like yesterday, he's going to laugh and laugh, and he's going to enjoy this story so much. So I was all set. The next day, we go in, we sit down. And when you were with Prabhupada, Prabhupada was very regulated. So when he went to a temple, just like here, every day he would go into the garden at the same time. Every day he would stay there for an hour, hour and a half. As I would find out later on, every day he had his massage at the same time. He had his lunch at the same time. So he was very regulated. So now we go in and we're sitting there. And of course, everything was whatever Prabhupada wanted. And sometimes he would just chant on his beads. He would just sit on the asana, a trellis around him, little flowers going up, and he would chant. Sometimes he would just talk to the devotees. And I'm sitting there with the Krishna book, and I got the bookmarker in it because I know exactly what I want to do. And then finally he looks at me and he just nods, which means read. So I start reading the story of Dravid Gorilla. It was one of my favorite demons. And I'm reading it, and I'm coming to the part where I just assume Prabhupada's going to laugh. just like he laughed 24 hours earlier. And I get to it, and it was just a simple thing. It was just, he was making, of course, big commotion, uprooting trees, throwing them into the ocean, whole mountainside he's throwing in, causing so much panic. And then he went and disturbed, he was making faces. I thought this was funny. He was making faces at the gopis, funny faces, monkey faces and everything. And then finally he did it. He came across to the jugya and he starts passing urine. So I thought that was just hilarious. And I'm reading, I'm getting to it. And as soon as I say it, Prabhupada started laughing and laughing louder and louder, just like the day before. And he's slapping his knee. And tears are coming down. He's in complete ecstasy, just seeing, just hearing and seeing and just absorbed in Krishna's pastimes. That's Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada was completely Krishna conscious all the time. So then I read through the story, calmed down, and of course, again, we're all laughing because Prabhupada's laughing. This is our business. We follow the Acharya. This is, I want to read. I have a little something to read. But so then that was that day. So he actually, somehow or other, he completely fulfilled my desire. And I can't say he knew it, but I know he knew it. He knew exactly what he was doing. So then the next day came. We were reading yesterday about super soul. You can't do anything without super soul. It said, just like the eyes, I was reading the verse yesterday, it said, just like our eyes, without our eyes, we won't even take one step. By seeing where we're going, then the eyes direct the body, go this way, that way. So it said in the same way, the super soul, you say he's directing the wanderings of all the living entities. He's also advising us what to do. But without his facilitating, we can't do anything. We can't remembrance, intelligence, forgetfulness. So that's what happened to me the next day. We go into the garden and I forgot to find a story because I was convinced Prabhupada was especially attracted to Krishna and Balaram killing the demons. So I would have thought of finding another story, Krishna killing a demon, but instead, all my intelligence was taken away. And I go into the garden and I have the Krishna book and we all go and sit down. We offer obeisances and sit up, but I didn't have a story. And as soon as Prabhupada saw me sit up, he looked at me, he said, read. Because Prabhupada knew everything. So I start going through the pages because I'm trying to find a story about a demon. So I wanted to read a story about a demon, and I'm going through the pages, and Prabhupada yelled, anywhere. He said, Krishna is like a sweet ball. He said, everywhere you bite, he's sweet. So then I just went to the very next story I could find, but it wasn't a demon. And Prabhupada didn't slap his leg and laugh in ecstasy, but he taught me a lesson. Prabhupada was always giving us lessons. You could learn so much. Just spending a few moments with Prabhupada, you could learn. He sat up in the garden. There were just a few of us. We were all just kids, all just in the temple, a few months, couple of years. And the one day he sat up, he said, Govinda Mari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. He said, everyone is serving. He said, serving their wife, serving the children, serving their boss, serving their dog. Prabhupada likes to speak about it. Serving their dog. In the US, he always found it so amazing. Everyone was just following dogs with little baggies. He said, they're waiting for the dog to poo. He said, and then they clean it up. He said, just see, serving dog. He said, but our pride is we're servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He said, Govindam Hari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. He said, that's our pride. We're servant of Krishna. Then another time he's sitting and he just looks at us. And he said, what color is Krishna? And again, there's just a few young boys sitting in front of him. I was not his servant yet, but I was already seeing Prabhupada had some things that he did. And Prabhupada could be very funny. I saw Prabhupada laughing and laughing. I knew he liked to laugh. And I'm thinking, why is he asking that question? Seems like a simple question. So right away, I'm thinking, he's going to make a point. But I don't raise my hand. But then one brahmachari, Prabhupada, he said, Krishna, he said, is described in Krishna book. We're reading from Krishna book every day. So he quotes Krishna book. He quotes 10th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. So he was smart devotee. He says it's described in the Krishna book that he's blackish like the monsoon rain cloud. Prabhupada goes, I saw that look so many times over the next couple of years. Prabhupada enjoying, shaking his head no. He said he's blue like the sky. He said the sky is blue because it's reflecting Krishna's bodily effulgence. He said that's why the sky is blue. So immediately, Prabhupada made it that all of us could see Krishna so easily, just by seeing. Now the rainy season is just finishing here. Been very cloudy, but now we had white clouds and beautiful blue sky for the last couple of days here in Vrindavan. So of course, here in Vrindavan, we see Krishna Balaram, we see Radha Shyama Sundar, we see Gaur Nitai, but we also see Krishna everywhere. Right out front of where I'm staying here in this flat, there's a big jasmine bush. And this is called the night queen. Night queen? Night blooming jasmine. This is a jasmine. After the sun sets, you can begin to smell the fragrance. Till around 9 o'clock at night, it's so fragrant, this jasmine. Prabhupada had one of these very same bushes in the garden in Los Angeles. And at nighttime, I would massage Prabhupada. But before I would give him massage, he was in his bedroom. Prabhupada would lie in bed. I would massage his legs and his feet. But before I would go into his room, I would go into the garden and I would pick some of these jasmines, the star jasmine, night jasmine, because Prabhupada was so fond. His fragrances were just wonderful. And as I would be giving him massage, Prabhupada would lay and he would have the jasmine just sitting right at his nose. So every breath he was taking, he's smelling the jasmine. And as I'm massaging him, and I hear, and he goes, you could hear him breathe it in. He said, this is Krishna. So this is Prabhupada. So many ways he showed us, not that you have to wait to see Krishna. You can see Krishna immediately. You just have to learn how to see Krishna, how to smell Krishna, how to hear Krishna. We know he even said, even the person drinking wine, he said, if he thinks this wine tastes so nice, this taste is Krishna, he said he'll become devotee. Even he's drinking wine. So the goal is somehow or other to be able to see Krishna, to understand Krishna. So all these prayers that we see here in the Bhagavatam, 10th canto, Krishna book filled with prayers. Nanda Maharaj, Kamsa saying prayers, Lord Brahma saying prayers, Lord Indra. Everyone is saying prayers, glorifying Supreme Personality of Godhead and showing us how to see Him in everything, every bit of the creation. So I stayed there for a week. I was able to, again, read to him Krishna book every day. Every day it didn't change. And he would look at me and he didn't say, okay, now read Krishna book. He would just look and you knew what to do. This was also being with the spiritual master, to understand his desires. So Prabhupada had a way of showing his desires even without speaking. I wanted to read something just because I saw it today and I thought it was a very nice thing to hear. This is a quote from Prabhupada on December 10th, 1976. So this is just less than a year before Prabhupada left. And he's speaking about himself. He said, "You are receiving through his servant." That's him. "And in the future, the same knowledge will go to your students. This is called parampara system. Evam parampara praptam. It is not that you have become a student and you'll remain student. No, one day you shall become also guru and make more students, more students, more. That's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. Not that perpetually. Yes, one should remain perpetually a student, but he has to act as guru. This is the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is not that because I am acting as guru, I am no longer student. No, I am still student. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us this instruction, that we shall always remain a foolish student before our Guru Maharaj. That is Vedic culture. I may be very big man, but still I shall remain a foolish student to my Guru. That is the qualification. Guru Murkadeki Karila Sasana. We should be always prepared to be controlled by the Guru. This is very good qualification. Yasha Prasada Bhagavat Prasada. Arana Karya Mane Asha. So we should become always very obedient student to our Guru. This is the qualification. This is the spiritual qualification. So that's our business twofold. Prabhupada said we're always student. And what's important for us, that's why I hope these classes are nice, because it's very important to understand what Prabhupada wanted from his students, how he wanted to present Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada made everything so simple. From the moment I saw him, I saw things were simple. Prabhupada didn't give us, when they said it was Allen Ginsberg, also back in 1967, he said, you're so strict. He said, you're so conservative. Because this Allen Ginsberg, he had been to India. He learned a little harmonium. He learned a few mantras. So he was chanting. He was going around chanting. But he said, Prabhupada, he said, you're so conservative. Prabhupada laughed. He said, I'm not conservative. He said, I'm very liberal. He said, I've given 1%. 1%, he said, I've given. And that, what Prabhupada gave, as he said, he made Krishna consciousness available to everyone. He saw, in order to spread Krishna consciousness around the world, it had to be available for all people. Didn't matter whether men, women, black, white, yellow, red, whatever it was. Lord Chaitanya's mission was to give Krishna to everyone. And Prabhupada did it in most practical way. He gave us very simple program. And I was just again reading yesterday. He said, if you follow this program, and that program, oh, Hare Krishna Ishwar. He said, if you follow that program, rising early in the morning, and he literally said, taking cold bath, rise early in the morning, take cold bath, attend Mangal Arti, chant 16 rounds, follow the principles, attend morning program, which meant classes. He said, you will be successful in Krishna consciousness. He said, it's not difficult. Sometimes we see now in the society, different little other things are entering in, making more complicated rules, regulations. Not that Prabhupada ever gave. We had very simple. We followed Ekadasis. We didn't do Nirjala Ekadasi. We fasted from beans and grains. He did institute Chaturmas, which was very, very simple as well, not complicated. We fasted from yogurt, fast from milk, fast from urd dal, fast from leafy greens. So these things were there. But that was it. Prabhupada said, if you want to follow more, he said, then you have to do everything. So he introduced Krishna consciousness to us in a simple way, that we could become Krishna conscious. We could become attached to Krishna. He said, if you want to follow everything, this was for Chaturmas people, they like to follow different things. He said, then you have to follow everything that's there. And one of the things that's there, he said, you simply eat khichdi off the floor. And he said, as soon as you lift your head, you're finished. And that you do once a day. So he gave an idea of the different regulations that were there if one wanted to do more than what he had given us. But his preaching was very simple, and that's what he wanted from us. Everyone you meet, you tell them about Krishna. Nothing, not so fancy, no rituals, no doing so many different things. Tell everyone about Krishna. That's Krishna consciousness. So we're very fortunate, all of us are very fortunate that we are hopefully following Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada's society, Srila Prabhupada's regulations as he gave it to us. And in this way, we can someday read Krishna book and laugh and laugh and laugh, just as Prabhupada was doing, and become Krishna conscious, become happy in Krishna consciousness. So that's our goal. We have a little bit of time. If anyone has any questions, now would be okay.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for this wonderful pastimes narration. It's so wonderful. First, I want to apologize once again on behalf of all of the devotees for the late coming. We'll try to do better next time.
Yes, as I said, you're excused because I missed the entire last class, so I can only complain a little bit, but still I want to mention.
At the same time, we understand we're supposed to wait for the speaker, not the speaker waiting for the listeners.
Yes, that's true.
Thank you very much for the open-mindedness, open communication.
This is what's one of the very important things in Krishna consciousness is understanding Vaishnava etiquette. So we definitely have etiquette that we follow amongst all of us in any position. We always, Prabhupada said, we offer our obeisances everyone. Back in the early days, as soon as you got up, first thing you did was you offered obeisances to your spiritual master while you were still lying there on your sleeping bag. And then everyone we see, of course, we were young then, 20 years old, 19 years old, you would offer obeisances to Super Soul. We saw everyone equally. We saw the Super Soul is there in everyone. So we would offer our obeisances. Now, of course, at 70 years old, if somebody offers obeisances, I get upset because it means I have to also get down. So Time and place is also important. When you're young, not such a difficult thing, but when you get old, it's not such an easy thing.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate all of you being here. As you know, Africa, South Africa, and Kenya, they were the last places I visited before coming back to Vrindavan here. So since that time, it seemed like basically all travel has stopped. I don't know if we're ever going to get to travel again. Part of me doesn't mind as long as I can stay in Vrindavan, but since I'm not an Indian citizen, that has complications. Hopefully that's up to Krishna Balaram to figure out.
Yeah.
Rasa, you have your hand up. You have a question?
Yeah, yes, we have. I have also a question, but I will first give the microphone to Sadi Prabhu. Sadi Prabhu, please can you unmute and ask a question?
Hare Krishna, Srutakirti Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience. And I think you could have chastised us a little more.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, please next time
Yes.
go all out, and because
Yes, and more of you too. I had
Thank you.
opportunity for class today. There's 70 devotees visiting. Where are they visiting from, Ishwar? There's 70 devotees just came here from somewhere. Every day here in Vrindavan, you have a group of 40, 50 devotees coming from Pune, coming from Juhu, coming from this place. Everyone wants to come to Vrindavan.
Yeah.
Yeah, yesterday was from Nepal,
Yes,
and today it was from
Nepal. Yeah, they
Nepal yesterday, and today I kind of forgot.
Ishwara, he gave class to the Russian devotees this morning. That means about 70, 80 devotees in the Russian building. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for service here in Vrindavan. We're very, very fortunate. We definitely feel blessed to be here.
Okay, Prabhuji, thank you. My question has to do with Srila Prabhupada and his movement, ISKCON. We know, like, Gork Shoulders Babaji didn't want to have many disciples. That was his mood. So there may be some gurus in ISKCON who also do not want to have many disciples. But we also need gurus who accept discipleship. Otherwise, we will not get that opportunity to belong to the parampara. Now, for the sake of serving the movement, what should the movement do when certain gurus say that they only give Brahmin initiation to devotees who live in the temple? If you live outside, you work for somebody, that does not define you as a Brahmin, because a Brahmin does not work for anybody. So if gurus, like I said, every guru may choose what they want to follow, what they do not want to follow. But as an organization, if many gurus start doing that we only give Brahmin initiation to those who are 100% dedicated to temple service, then how does the movement grow? That's my question. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. There were, there's different things Prabhupada said at different times about different types of initiation. There was a point in 1977, early 1977, late 1976, he said, no more sannyasis. He said, he was seeing so many of his disciples, his Western disciples, sannyasis, falling down. But then a month or two after that, Prabhupada himself gave sannyas to different devotees. Same thing happened with Brahmin. There was a time when Prabhupada said, unless one's engaged in deity worship, he doesn't need Brahmin initiation. There, you can find, if you look on Veda base, you'll find places where Prabhupada says that Harinam initiation is most important. Brahmin initiation, not so important. But then you'll see other times where he says Brahmin initiation is very important. So I guess these are all part of things we can call it adjustments according to time and place. As far as I know myself, I think currently ISKCON, our ISKCON society has 100 and so authorized gurus. And out of those 100 or so, there, there's probably a dozen or so that, like, they're the big gurus. Then you have ones that are a little quieter gurus. You have a few grahasta gurus. You have no lady gurus in ISKCON. So for me, it's kind of a difficult question to answer because, shastrically, the whole system is wrong. Like Prabhupada said here, eventually students should become qualified and be guru. Everyone should do that. Everyone should, want to continue in his spiritual master. It's basically just following your spiritual master's work. Now, myself, of course, I also don't consider myself qualified to accept students in that way and give initiation. And it's never even been something I had to think about. Although since coming to Vrindavan, sometimes people make you think about it. But, and, the student, as Prabhupada said, it's good that I read that because I think it pertains to what you're talking about, that we're always a student. But by always considering yourself a student, and just, as we say, a fool before your spiritual master. And student only knows what he hears from his guru. That's what it means to be a fool before your spiritual master. And Prabhupada, he was perfect at just following his spiritual master. And everything he did, all the business that he carried out was the order of his spiritual master, to come to the West, to print books in English, to accept disciples in that way. It was all just orders of his spiritual master. And therefore he was perfect student. And the perfect student, he can become perfect spiritual master, just on that basis. So this is everyone's business. But then there's that little thing. You have to be qualified. Otherwise, if you're unqualified and you're accepting students, then, as it said, you go to hell and your student's going to go to hell. So that's not the position we want. It's the duty of the student to understand who he's accepting as spiritual master, to see that he's qualified. And it's also the duty of the teacher, the spiritual master, to know that this person also, he's serious in spiritual life. But the lines between first initiation and second initiation, that is a little blurry when it's necessary. Because to accept, like you say, to be actual Brahmin like me, I also had a business for 20 years. I didn't work for anybody. I worked for myself. But, now I see I'm fortunate. I'm here in Vrindavan. I don't take anything. I have no salary. I have no maintenance from the temple. None of these things. I'm in a position where I can just offer everything, my words and my mind, my actions, in service here at the temple. So there's different points in life where different things will go on. And that's for most of us. Prabhupada himself, right? He had a business. He was initiated by his spiritual master, but he carried on in a business as well for many years. But then, like he says, Krishna just took everything away, and in order to give him everything. So these are things I think it's important to learn ourselves, to understand what to do. As Prabhupada would say, use your common sense. But yeah, but Brahmin, from the beginning, Prabhupada expected us to follow Brahminical standards when we were Brahmins. He expected all the little things that Brahmins do, they should be done. When he said so, when he said, Brahmin, you bathe 3 times a day, that's just part of Brahminical lifestyle. Brahmins are clean. When Brahmin's in the kitchen, he's cooking for Krishna. He uses only the best ingredients. He doesn't, Prabhupada said, we don't accept things that have been prepared by karmis. So, to just say, want to be a Brahmin, someone become a Brahmin, then you have to live like a Brahmin. So that's not always an easy thing to do, especially in Kali Yuga, and especially if you're not in the temple. I was talking to a group the other day. They were in Dubai area. They have no temples there because just by government, they can't do anything. It's Muslim countries, and any Hindu religion is, you're just going to hide it. So I saw, and they were very happy to show me. So many of them, they were showing me their homes. Their homes were temples. The lady is there. This is part of their culture that's still, I see it here in Vrindavan. It's still strong in so many areas where you have these people from the villages and towns. They still follow Vedic culture. So they showed me the woman, she's doing bhajan, the son's playing the mridanga, then she's cooking, Gaurnatai deities, Jagannath deities. So if we want to be Brahmin, then that's what it means. This is our lifestyle, to live a Brahminical lifestyle. So that's not something just so I can hang a thread, a 2-cent thread around my neck. That's not what it means to be Brahmin. It's to live in a Brahminical way, which basically means to be Krishna conscious for us. That's what it means. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's just these things in our ISKCON society. There's so many things going on. I just wrote a whole thing yesterday. I normally don't get into in controversial things. I just try to say what Prabhupada did, what Prabhupada says we should do, and go on. But I got very upset because people were writing me, asking me if they were allowed to wear neck beads, because in their temples that they attend, people are telling them, unless you've given up everything, unless you're no intoxication, not even tea, coffee, you shouldn't wear neck beads. And even saying they shouldn't chant on Tulsi Japa beads. So these are all fabrications that come out of the desire to lord it over. Basically, that's what it is. It's little people thinking they're big managers, and they just want to tell others what they can do and what they can't do. But so I put the post on, and someone even helped me. There was a half a dozen quotes from Shastra saying in any condition one should wear tulsi around the neck. Any condition. You can't contaminate pure devotee. And we know ourselves. We go into the bathroom. We don't take off our tulsi beads. So these things have come in from different sources, which I'm sure you know as much as I do where they come from. But, it's somehow up to us to set proper example. And that's why I'm stressing with Prabhupada. His rules were simple. Everyone you meet, you tell them about Krishna. That's Prabhupada's idea of Krishna consciousness. You chant, you follow, You do the morning program, he said, most important. And aside from that, you just try to give Krishna to others. It's very simple.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Our next question is from Rasa Vilas Das. Rasa Vilas,
Yes.
Prabhu, maybe unmute and ask your question.
Okay.
Rasa Vilas.
Rasa Vilas, we
Oh,
can't hear you. You got to unmute yourself.
I think he mistakenly pressed a button. He's off the line now.
He might have, yes, he might
no
have
longer
disappeared.
I think. Okay, he's here. He's here.
No, he's still here.
He's still here.
Just that his mic is muted.
Yeah, his mic is muted. I think he's trying to. Something happened. But okay,
Well, then may I ask my
ask
question
people
then?
to come.
Okay.
I think I have a question.
You
All right.
think?
I have a question before Rasa Vilas comes back.
Okay.
I'm very much enthused hearing about the beginning days with Srila Prabhupada, association directly with Prabhupada, and then in relation to today's test, the Pandavas association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. And it is said that association with devotees or Krishna himself brings all auspiciousness in the life of devotees. And in that light, my question is 50 years back, and in today's Krishna consciousness, not specifically to any particular geographical location, what do you think is going wrong? What are the things that you think is not happening? Because my feeling is that the mood in which ISKCON was growing, things were expanding, people immediately, you mentioned something very unique, and anyone who has joined this movement 30 years, 40 years back knows this experience. I never even met Srila Prabhupada. I never even met any devotee of Srila Prabhupada ISKCON. I just read a book. I just bought a book on his book stand, and I just took to Krishna consciousness. And I was practicing for over a year before I eventually get to know a temple. So this was the mode. So between that time and now, something seems to have gone wrong. As one of Srila Prabhupada's early disciples, what is going wrong? What do we need to do to make things get back to that mood?
Well, I mean, I can give you my opinion. You know, I think, and of course, see, this is why I think, you know, I say we have to get back to Prabhupada consciousness, how he did things, what he did, why he did it, what he didn't do. You know, there's so much that goes on. We can talk in so many areas, just in kirtan. You know, I was just reading a story how Prabhupada was here in India, and he was in a village as they were traveling. So even within India, there's different understanding. There's worship of demigods. There's different mantras, and this devotee was leading a kirtan, one of Prabhupada's sannyasis, and he was, you know, he was a Westerner, and us Westerners, we've always been very passionate. Our kirtans, they were wild, and when Prabhupada's there, even more, faster, faster, faster. And Prabhupada stopped the kirtan because none of the local people they didn't get it. They couldn't even understand what was going on. So Prabhupada stopped the kirtan and he started chanting. And he only chanted half the mantra so that they would respond. He did it in a very simple, listen to Prabhupada's kirtans. He said one or two melodies. He said, that's it. Because the whole idea in Hari Nam Sankirtan is to see that others are chanting, not that you're just enjoying your ability to hit different notes and do this and do that. It's to engage everyone in chanting. So Prabhupada chanted half the mantra, and then they responded. Then he chanted Hari Ram, Ram Ram, Hari, and they chanted. So in this way, that's what we, Prabhupada wanted to see the whole world become Krishna conscious. But, if someone's on the bodily concept of life, immediately you can shut out all but just a few people. I'll tell you frankly, when I traveled in Africa, is all I saw. You can have your apartheid, not apartheid, was segregation. You have the temple there was the Indians had their temple. And I never even got to go to, what was it called? Soweto. All I ever wanted to do every time I was there, I would ask, when can I go to the temple in Soweto? I wanted to see local people. Just like when you're in England, you want to see British people chanting Hare Krishna, not just Indians, not just the Gujaratis or not just the Marwa. No, you want to see the people in that community. So if we've done anything wrong, among so many things that we're doing, we've isolated people. You can't feel that it's for everyone. I mean, even I go to temples in the West, because it's all filled, and it's not bad. I'm not saying anything bad. It's wonderful that the Indian community has embraced their culture, Krishna consciousness. They're maintaining all the temples that we couldn't maintain. They're doing all these things, but there has to be a place for everyone, all the different cultures that are there in the community. Everyone should feel welcome. This is what Prabhupada did. He made everyone feel welcome. So if there's one thing we need to do, it's to understand the very essence of our philosophy, that we're not these bodies, that we're all spirit, soul. We all belong to Krishna, and to actually give people that feeling, and in a small way. I know when we were traveling in Durban and different places, we very much enjoyed seeing local people, the local devotees, who were African for the most part. And we could see that how important it was that they felt part of the family. And my wife, in her own little innocent way, whenever she would see anyone, she would say, "What tribe are you with?" And I would be like, but she wasn't, she was saying it in a very genuine, loving, friendly way. She wanted to know what community. And they liked it. They liked hearing it. These girls, and they were with this and they were with this. And every time,
Tuana tribe.
huh?
Tuana tribe.
Tuana.
Tuana tribe.
Yeah. Anyway, when she would say, I would get a little like, I hope they don't take it in the wrong way. But they didn't. They understood because she cared. She cared. So our business, Prabhupada cared for us. So if we want to be successful, we actually have to care for everyone. And especially anyone that comes anywhere near a temple, to make them feel like that temple is their home. That's how Prabhupada established this society. We became part of his family. Because when you leave, you're leaving your family. So the only way to leave a family successfully is to be with another family, because that's what we would say. You leave your family, your business, our only business is to become Krishna conscious. That's what this human life is meant for. But how are you going to do it if you leave your so-called mundane family and you're just walking into some isolated thing where nobody even literally will even give you the time of day? One god brother, he left some years ago, Purna Chandra. He joined late. Prabhupada was initiated by Prabhupada just towards the end. Then he was in Russia. He became a sannyasi. He was a guru. And he wrote some books. But he was saying in one of them, like you can see if you go to a temple, and after Mangalarti, people are walking around Tulsi Devi chanting Japa Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. He said, and he asked the devotee what time it was. And the devotee just couldn't even speak to him. So this is our impersonalism. This is what's rampant. And to get rid of that is not an easy thing. And I see people chanting 40 years, 50 years, and you can see that all that chanting, unless we have a change of heart and actually care about others, then we haven't learned anything. We don't understand what Krishna consciousness is. So that's the most important thing. So on our own is all we can do is try to be that person. Prabhupada was one person, so he accomplished so much. So our business is to somehow or other to give that same Krishna consciousness, love. What did they call the Sunday? It was the love feast. And then, and then everything was about love and trust. So this is our business.
Thank you very much. Very nicely answered.
Thank you.
I think Rasa Vilas Prabhu is having problem with his battery, so he couldn't continue. But I think
I think Ras Vilas said something in the chat room. He wants to ask a question because he has to leave.
Okay, I also have to leave.
Ras Vilas, can you unmute and ask your question?
Hare Krishna, Hare Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Srutakirti Prabhu. Thank you for the lecture this morning. You have given us a lot of inspiration with your association with Srila Prabhupada.
Right.
It's very nice to inspire those of us who joined the movement newly. Fortunately, today happens to be my appearance day. I sent a message to my guru this morning. And then the instructions he gave me today were the same instructions he gave me on the day of my initiation. So I was like, is it that I'm not doing it the way my guru wanted me to do? Or he's giving me a new instruction based on me asking him if there's any special thing or any instruction he wants to give me today. But my question will have to be the fact that, the new devotee that we join, with the inspiration His Grace Srutakirti Prabhu is giving us his association with Srila Prabhupada and their inspiration. We are not getting this kind of inspiration. Or is it because we are not associating with devotees? Is it because we are not taking up devotional service well? Or what is our shortcoming? What is taking us backwards? So I would love him to throw more light. What it really is. My phone goes off.
I'm not quite sure I understood the question. Is what?
Okay, I think his question is that the summary of his question is that the kind of association that you got with the Prabhupada,
yes,
as younger new devotees, they're not getting that kind of.
You're not. What am I doing here? Why am I wasting my time?
So
I thought I was giving you Prabhupada's association.
Yeah.
No, this is the process. You have to find someone that inspires you, and someone it can make you understand that spiritual life is dynamic. Prabhupada is there if you want him in your life. Krishna Balaram, the deities, they're there. Prabhupada said you can talk to them and they'll talk to you, but you have to qualify yourself. But that part of that qualification is understanding that Prabhupada's present. Here in Vrindavan, we're his samadhi, like I said, 500 people standing 4 o'clock in the morning at Mangalarti at Prabhupada's samadhi. There's 1,000 people chanting japa because we understand that Prabhupada is there. They're taking inspiration from Prabhupada. Prabhupada's in all of his temples. He's sitting on the Vyasasana. When they opened this temple, 1975, there was a deity of Prabhupada in front of Gaur Nitai. There's a deity of Bhakti Siddhanta on one side, or Lord Chaitanya's side, and on the other side, Nityananda's side, there's a deity of Prabhupada. Prabhupada opened this temple, installed the deities of himself on the altar. So this is the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. He is there. And the more you follow his instructions, you know, Krishna consciousness, you get out of it what you put into it. You know, just to sit home, chant a few rounds and think I'm a devotee, that's not going to get you anywhere. You're not going to feel any ecstasy. If you want ecstasy, you got to do tapasya. That's Krishna consciousness. I learned that with Prabhupada. Being with Prabhupada wasn't easy, but there was nothing better than to be with Prabhupada. There's no more ecstasy than to actually be with him. But being with him was also difficult. So if we want to get anything in Krishna consciousness, you got to give something. You got to give, and then you'll receive. So we should stop here.
Thank you very much. We're very grateful for your wonderful association, and we look forward to seeing you again in a very short time.
I look.
Just one quick comment. Actually, if anybody if anyone want to feel the presence of Srila Prabhupada, just listen to Srutakirti Prabhu.
Yeah.
It actually makes you feel Srila Prabhupada is here. Just listen to him.
Even Ishwara is coming.
Always.
No, this is how.
So I always enjoy.
This is the
Always
process.
enjoy listening to Prabhupada.
And I love your background, Prabhu. Very, very fancy. I only see half of your face, half of your head is like merged into your background.
He's in the Brahman effulgence.
You already look like you're leaving your body. You're already going somewhere else. All right. We'll do this again. And any of you can want to write me a little question or something sometime. But yes, Prabhupada is just like when we read about Krishna, Krishna's there. When the devotees are together talking about Prabhupada, Prabhupada is there. It's a question of realization.
Well, Prabhuji, when you speak about Srila Prabhupada, it somehow puts some of us into that particular time when whatever happened, even though we were not there physically. It's so beautiful hearing about Srila Prabhupada from like first-hand witness. So we really appreciate having you from time to time sharing Srila Prabhupada with us.
Jai, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
My pleasure, because I also, by talking about him, I also get to experience Prabhupada. So it's my own selfishness that I do this. I also want to associate with Prabhupada. All right.
Okay.
Okay, let all of the devotees please kindly unmute now and let us loudly chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra to appreciate Srutakirti Prabhu coming.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Jai. Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Jai.